Hey, welcome everyone. This is episode 34 of the Shaman Wood podcast, Out of the Gloom. Apologies, we've been trying to record this podcast for probably a month. We've had a lot of scheduling conflicts, so we've been gone a while, but certainly glad to be back. And as always, glad to be back with my partner in crime, Doghouse. Welcome back, Doghouse.
Thank you.
And today we've got a PAX joining us from Morris in the Chamonix region here. We have Ramon Diaz, who's also known as Pancake. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. It's good to be back. And for the record, episode 34 doesn't fall on Pancake. We've had a few people in the slot just fall through. So just want the listeners
Absolutely.
to know Pancake is as scheduled, as planned.
Yep. We've got some making up to do too. So if you've been on the cue sheet, get back on. If you've missed an opportunity, we've got a lot of open spaces to fill. So make sure you're hopping on the cue sheet. In terms of kicking this off the right way, I wanted to ask you, gentlemen, how your weekend has been. Doghouse, I know you were somewhere very special on Saturday night. Tell us all about the Elimination Chamber in Chicago.
Yeah, I was very fortunate Saturday night to be able to attend Elimination Chamber in the United Center. For those of you who don't know, it's a WWE wrestling event. Puddles and I are big fans. Very fortunate to get the suite this time. I actually got a vendor from work to cover that, and actually got to hang out with a WWE alumni, Armando Estrada, who was very cool to give a little bit of insight. And I got another Ric Flair story, but I can't share it on the air, Puddles. We'll talk offline on that one.
All right.
Another first-hand Ric Flair story, but yeah, that was Saturday night, and then last night we went out to Medieval Times for my birthday with my family, which was awesome.
Nice.
Birthday on Thursday, so grabbed the queue there, and but overall great weekend. And then to wrap it all up, or I should say to kick it all off, was the F3 Plainfield Poker Tournament Friday, which was a lot of fun as well. So awesome
Well,
weekend for me.
happy belated birthday to you, Doghouse.
Technically, it's Thursday. We celebrated
Well, this
yesterday.
Thursday
Thank you.
coming up. Got it.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
Pancake, how about you? What were you up to this weekend?
Yeah, so being a farm kid, our lives are very much slower than most people. So a lot doesn't change out here in the country. We do a lot of now it's getting warmer, the four-wheelers are coming back out, and we do a lot of bonfires. So this past weekend, we do a lot of walking. Our road is not used very much. So our kids are very accustomed to hanging out and running with dad or walking with dad. My in-laws live on the farm right next to ours, so you can cross our field, their field, and go diagonal right into. So it's like a 8 minute walk for them. So we do a lot of we spend a lot of time within our family. Her sister lives in 5 mile, like 8 minutes, just the opposite direction in another farm. And so that's just generally how I grew up. I've been a part of a small farm town. I grew up pretty much in a bubble. I learned that pretty quickly once I left to go play football, how small my world was. So yeah, so we spent a lot of time just hanging out. It's a big de-stressor for me, and I do enjoy runs out here. It's just not having cars around. It's what I'm used to, being out in the cornfields running, and I did a lot of that. So and then walked with my family, and we do a family movie night every weekend.
Nice.
Awesome.
So we have like this projector screen that's in one of the. We have this Four Seasons porch that's attached to the farm in the back end. So we they're really excited about it. They're always looking forward to that. So we get it's just usually like a Disney movie or something, and I usually cook out. It's a big thing. I cook out religiously once it gets warm enough, like almost every weekend. Every meat possible I'll put on the grill. And my boys, I have two boys and a little girl, so they all are big meat eaters, and we enjoy a little family time. And then afterwards, we'll usually turn on a bonfire. And then Sunday we go to church. In the morning, we spend a couple hours in the morning with our church community, and then afterwards, Sunday is a really big restful day for me. So, and I put a lot of miles in running wise. So, I can stay off my legs. So I average anywhere between like 30 to 35 miles a week. But yeah.
Yeah, we got lucky. For those of you who aren't in the Midwest, we got very lucky in the Chicago area to have 60-degree temperatures in the end of February, which is almost unheard of.
For one
So
day.
for one day, yeah, and that was the
Oh,
one day I said I'm going to run outside today. I'm not going to miss this opportunity. So that's
Yeah.
how I spent my weekend. I got out. I was going to go to the boot camp at the Wood and run, just do an EC run before that. I decided, you know what, with Sparklers run coming up next weekend, I really need to see if I can put some big miles together. So I did an 11-mile run on Saturday
Oh,
and felt
nice.
good, felt really strong, felt happy with how it went. That's the kind of thing you have to get in. I'm aiming for 20 miles next Saturday. So
yeah.
I need to know I could at least do 10, and it felt
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So that's how my weekend was. And then Sunday, obviously just recovering from that, running some errands. Nothing crazy. But with that behind us, I wanted to shift gears a little bit and give Doghouse the floor to go through F3's core principles, mission, and credo. Doghouse, take us away.
Yes, thank you. At F3, we are made up of five core principles that makes us F3. One, we're open to all men.
Men,
Two, we're free of charge.
charging.
Three, we're held outside, rain, shine, heat, or cold. Four, we're peer-led in a rotating fashion. And five, we always end in a circle of trust.
Aye.
We have a credo, and that is to leave no man behind, but leave no man where you find him.
Right.
And finally, we have a mission that is made up of task and a purpose, and that is to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups of men for the invigoration of male community leadership.
Aye. Excellent. Well,
Thank
we
you.
do spend most of our time together out in the gloom all year round. Although I'm really glad there have been so many second F and third F opportunities, especially here during Winter Warrior.
Yeah.
But I wanted to start there in where we've been outdoors these last couple of weeks. I'll start with Pancake, Doghouse, whoever wants to take your favorite workout of the last week or so. Give us some highlights of
Yeah.
what you've been seeing out in the region.
Go ahead, Pancake, jump in, please.
I would say it was the VQ on Saturday. Pesticide was it was a good opportunity to be able to see him. I was really inspired and encouraged by how many men ended up coming out. So that was really neat to see. Just that the amount of people were the intentionality of making sure that he felt supported, and it was a well supported environment. And I think it helped Pesticide, I think, work through some, like all of us. I'm pretty new at it as well, queuing. So be able to just know that you have that many people there wanting to just see you do well. And I think the one highlight that I would take away is just how many people were willing to encourage him throughout
Mhm.
the workout. You saw a lot of fist bumps. You saw some men come alongside him, encouraging him, giving some feedback during the workouts, and I'm sure he took away a lot, and he was able to learn a lot just from the feedback as well, throughout the workout. So very encouraging, supportive environment, and it was really great to see how many we had a couple, I think two FNGs as well came out, and so that was really encouraging as well. And people were really high spirits. I think that's what it's all about. I think that's what draws me. I know Toolbox at one point was went and like started jogging with a guy who was running past the workout, and just invited him and he just kind of followed him, around us. And so it's good to see everyone's just very intentional, all around, I think, from top to bottom. So
Yeah.
Mhm. What about you, Doghouse?
I'm going to piggyback on that with a couple additional points. One, Morris is 5 months old, Motown, our newest AO in the region, and we had 28 guys out there, and a majority of them were true Motown guys. It wasn't like we had three or four Motown guys and the rest were from the region. Like I'd say probably at least 20 of those guys were regular Motown guys. So the growth there has been awesome. Obviously, VQs are always fun. Pesticide was definitely one of the better ones I've been a part of. Struggled a little bit early with cadence and calling things out, but as Pancake said, his confidence grew very quickly. Very tough workout. We did group style exercises with weights, and then did a little mosey run, probably about half, maybe a little more, less than half a mile to a hill and back, and very encouraging. We had different speeds of runners. A lot of guys were going back and getting six just kind of naturally. That's always good to see instead of just kind of standing around bullshitting or whatever. And then even after that, we had 22 guys at Q Source. So 20, 28 at the workout, two FNGs, and then 20. So really 26 of the guys were kind of in F3, knew about it, and 22 of those men went to Q Source, which was led by Pancake. And, Puddles, you've been to some of those reindeer games, Q Sources where, you get above 8 or 10 men, and it's tough to keep that room focused,
Yeah.
especially when guys are waiting for breakfast and stuff. So, Pancake, great job there on leading that Q Source with a big group.
Yeah, that is really encouraging to hear, not only because it's a new AO, a new part of the region,
Mhm.
but to see what I would still call newer men step up and lead. It's often not, obviously the VQ is very stressful, stepping up into a group of men that you respect and trying to feel like you have a place there and you belong there. That's difficult in itself. But we always say to get back on the cue sheet as quickly as possible after that because you don't want to lose that lesson that you've learned and make it more uncomfortable than it is the first time. So I'm glad he got a lot of support, a lot of encouragement from the men. It is peer led. We've all been there. We've all been in that position where we're like, oh man, how's this cadence go? How's this count go?
Mhm.
What's this exercise called? What am I supposed to do next? But that's all part of it. That's all part of becoming a leader is trying and failing and growing through that process. So I'm glad that happened. For myself, I look back to a couple of the last workouts I've been at. Sir Lemonhead has been the cue, and he says, consistently that it's something he's trying to get better at and he's trying to work through. And you can see the growth every time he takes the cue. He's a little bit more comfortable and feels like he's got a bit more control over all the things that you have to do, the stuff just to get through the process. So I'm proud of him for doing something that takes him outside of his comfort zone and improving at it. He's getting better each week. So yeah, that's my highlight of the last week or so. So it sounds like we've got a consistent theme, all of us looking at men stepping up in the region and making an impact by queuing workouts. So just a reminder again to get on the cue sheet. Whether it's working or not, keep trying it. Keep trying through Slack. You might have to reload it a couple times, but it is there. And if you have questions, reach out to one of us on SLT and we'll figure it out, even if we have to manually get you there. But that's what we mean when we say peer led. People have to step up or this all falls apart. So let's move into the second F portion of the podcast, which is the PAX Spotlight Q&A. Doghouse, I know you've got a couple questions for Pancake, and I will take over once you're done.
Cool. So, Pancake, first question. We all here know the answer, but let's hear it for the audience. How did you find F3?
Uh, I ran into Puddles at a small bakery in Morris that I've been going to since I was about as old as my youngest, who's 7. And I lived in a house that was 5 minutes walking distance from this bakery growing up. We still own that house. My sister lives in that house now, and um, I took my kids there just like I do every week. We usually go once a week. It's a good way just for me to connect with my kids and something that I want to share that legacy with them. We share stories about my dad, and they love hearing about my dad and their grandpa, of course. And then one day we were there, we were just chatting, and I generally know most people in Morris,
Hmm?
to everybody, but I can usually tell if it's an unfamiliar face or unfamiliar faces, especially at a bakery, just because it's a family owned. So you pretty much know everybody that comes in and out. And I had not seen this group of men before walking in there. So as someone who has been a long time Morris native, been in many different leadership roles and more as I always feel like I want to welcome people, feel like they feel welcomed into the town. I know that's something we take great pride in our town. Feel like, just because you're not from there doesn't mean you can't share that experience of small town life. And I heard him talk about football, so that was a pretty easy shoe into the door was for me to chime in a little bit. And I just, as usual, I'm pretty comfortable, small talk. I can kind of, my kids say I can talk to anybody, no matter if they want to talk to me or not, is a joke. And so I can spark up a conversation with lots of people. I attribute that to my dad. My dad was really good at that as well. And just kind of share my 2 cents and then, talked a little bit, just try to connect with them. And I think Puddles, yeah, I think a couple of the guys kind of chimed in a little bit. And then Puddles at some point before I went back to sit with my kids, had just off, just presented the F3 and say, hey, we have a small workout nearby, and I was deeply interested. I was bought in before he finished the sentence, and this goes into more of uh, my spiritual journey as a Christian man, that I felt like this was something that we as a community have been praying for a community like this, and so it made a lot of sense. Everything kind of just clicked as soon as Puddles ended the conversation, and I was pretty much bought in once I went to my first workout, which wasn't for a couple weeks. I just couldn't align with my schedule with work and make it work. But I finally was able to go to a Saturday workout, and everything that was January, so everything changed from there. And then Puddles, you mentioned Sir Lemonhead, and
Hmm.
so him and I are very like-minded. Him having a military background and my sports background, I think we just clicked really well. And a lot of the men have come and been more than helpful to mentor me and be able to glean from a lot of wisdom, just from just various men that I've met throughout my experience so far.
Awesome. So I know, as Puddles alluded to earlier, we've been having some issues with some technology in the region, but do you happen to know what your post count is today?
Yeah, so it's 39 today.
Awesome.
So yeah.
All right, coming up on 43. We'll be sure we celebrate that one. Um, Tell us, if you would, please, how you got your F3 name.
Yeah, so it's a story that I remember very distinctly to this day. It's a running joke at holiday parties. My oldest brother, likes to give me a hard time because I'm a pretty arrogant asshole when it comes to football. So I kind of have a pretty sharp mouth if you get me on the field. And I was a redshirt freshman at Northwestern University. I was a pretty highly recruited athlete coming out of high school, out of Morris. Morris is kind of well, I'm dating myself, but varsity blues kind of environment. So I don't know if everyone's
Mm.
watching varsity blues, but um, it's a great movie. It's a movie that I watch pretty regularly throughout the year. It's that one in Friday Night Lights. So I know some of your some people listening may not recognize the movies. I highly recommend it if you guys, whoever's listening hadn't seen it. They're great too. We have them on DVDs, just kind of give you a better idea how we watch movies now. But yeah, so that's environment. Town shuts down, and it was something that I learned to love just because of the way the culture of the town. It was very much like that. So since I could remember, football was always talked about. So arrived in Northwestern, I was a redshirt freshman, and I was pretty arrogant. I knew my place. I always kind of felt like no one was better than me, and little did I know, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And it was during preseason, and we were up in camp in Wisconsin, Kenosha, Wisconsin, which we go every year. University of Wisconsin Parkside is where we stay for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then we do our scrimmage at Carthage at the end of the 2 weeks. And it was one of the first practices. I'll never forget it. I met some of the captains pretty early on, and one of them was Barry Cofield. Barry Cofield was in the defensive line for the New York Giants during the Super Bowl.
Okay.
It was the one that it was Eli was still there, and he traded time with Justin Tuck. I think his last name was Tuck. I'm not sure if I remember his first name, but anyways, he was rotating with the interior line, and so he got drafted pretty early. I don't remember what round. So I knew about some of these guys because you look them up. And so I was on the practice squad as a redshirt freshman, and I was 285, 290. So I was pretty big. I was one of the bigger guys in Illinois at the time. I was, ranked pretty high among guards among the country. And so I thought I thought I figured it out. And I've never been hit so hard in my life. Like it was one of the first times that, he was 310, I think, which at that time was pretty big. I mean, guys are getting bigger now, but 310 at that time in 2005 is pretty big for an interior lineman. And he just moved like, I don't know. I mean, the way the combination of speed, explosiveness, and power and strength, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced. So I thought it was pretty quick. I thought I was pretty agile for my size, and it was just during a practice game, or I was running the opponent's offensive plays, and I tried to work off a double. So we were doubling him, and I was moving up to the linebacker. And when I hit him, I don't know, like it felt like I hit like I most have felt like I hit like a brick wall. Like he didn't move, and I ended up taking him over completely because he slanted towards my side, and so he picked me up and I've never gotten picked up. I've never got hits like that, and I've never gotten picked up. And he threw me backwards. So not only was I in the air for a couple of seconds, and then after that, it was in the film room next day was hysterical because I got my ass chewed out by our offensive line coach. And I mean, it's part of the whole hazing process. I mean, everyone kind of gets a little, heckled. And then once I found out who he really was, and everyone expected that was expectation. Like he destroyed everybody. I mean, you don't play on the defense line in the NFL if you're not destroying people every day in practice. So that's how I ended up telling that story. And then somebody had yelled out Pancake. And so yes, I think I got Pancake for the first time as a redshirt freshman, and that was, again, you don't forget those kind of things. But he's an incredible athlete. He had a very successful NFL career, and so he is certainly everything that people said he was. So
Awesome. That's definitely one of the better stories I've heard. And so my last question before I pass off to Puddles is, what is your typical posting cadence throughout the week?
typical. I'm sorry, what was that?
Your typical posting cadence. So where are you at throughout the week? Where do you try to get at least? It might change week to week, but Mondays, I think I've seen you at the Wood a few times. Tuesdays, I know you're queuing Riding Club tomorrow.
Yep. I try to make it to, yeah, I mean, three. So then Wednesday, I think, is a black diamond usually.
Mm-hmm.
I get to the Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. But I've been to Three Rivers, Wood, Thursdays the campus, Coal City. That was a black diamond, I believe.
Yep. Mine check.
And so ATF was leading that one. And so I know Coal City well. So all those towns west of Morris, I'm familiar with. I either play football against, or I grew up with kids, country kids out there. So really familiar with all those areas: Seneca, Wilmington, um, Pontiac, Mazan, all those. You keep going west, it gets really, really remote pretty quickly. Um, and I think everywhere but the island I've been to. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, I'll take over from here. We usually ask this question last, but I'll start here because I think it's always fun to know when we get a newer guy. You'd mentioned 30, 39 or so posts, 2 months in. Um, I wanted you to talk about how F3 has changed your life in the last 2 months. You talked about the spiritual side of always feeling like Morris needed something like F3. But when we talked, it sounded like you needed something like F3 as well. I wanted you to talk a little bit about your mindset coming into F3 and how it's changing in the last couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything that I used to have as being part of a high performance organized sports since I was 8, 9 years old. Um, Leadership roles are something that I've done for many, many years. I was captain of my high school team. I was on the leadership team at Northwestern. I wasn't a captain, but leadership is a little different. So never got called up to the captain position, but that's a little difficult once you get Division 1. You really got to be big time, prime time players at that level. So, but the guys who were there and the captains are absolutely earned the right to be there. Um, and so for me, not only being part of a culture where competition and self improvement and just high performance in general, that mindset is pretty unique. And once I left and retired playing, and I left for spiritual reasons, and I ended up retiring for spiritual reasons, but um, it was a pretty lost. I was pretty lost for a while. I got married and started working, and that was a culture shock. I had never had a job, a full time job. I mean, part time jobs to make a little cash, but never really had a real job until I was 28, 27. That was a major shift in my life, not training for several hours a day and then getting a cold bath, hot tub, massages, um, playing in front of hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people on ESPN. And you go from all of that to, my first job, was just a pretty typical middle class, middle income kind of job. I just wanted to start working. I wanted to learn how to, go 9 to 5, punch in, punch out. And so that was a lot for me to have to try to manage that. And emotionally, I wasn't in a good place, and just felt like people around me didn't really want to aspire to do much. And again, I don't know people's stories, but I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere because of the mindset that shaped me for a long time. And because of the success I had, it was always something I always wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. And that's what I was used to. And so I went through a lot of odd end jobs. I decided to go back to graduate school. And even there, I learned that I was very interested in psychology. And so I got deeply, deeply invested in that. I learned a lot about myself and some of the areas that I really was deficient in, areas that I had needed to improve in as a father, as a husband, as a leader at home. And I couldn't do that alone. I had the skills. I became a clinical therapist, but I realized that there were some major areas that I couldn't fill. I couldn't improve on them without having some kind of group like I used to have. And it certainly didn't have to be sports, but just had to be something. And so I kind of spent a few years, not only in grad school, but just searching and never really finding anything. I went back to sports a little bit for a little while, but it wasn't the same. Obviously, once you play the level I did, it's kind of hard to duplicate that. And so didn't really find those connections like I thought I would. And got into the field once I became a clinical therapist, started working, and definitely felt those gaps mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so years and years later, this group just was all of those things that fill those gaps. And meeting just the men that I did immediately. I think of Picasso as well. He's someone that I have a lot of respect for, and we have really good conversations when we run. I I was able to what I've gotten from F3 so far is everything that I had when I was a high performance athlete without the like competitiveness of like dog eat dog worlds. And so that business side of things was no longer there. And it was just men wanting to encourage men, wanting to see people improve. And that wasn't necessarily what you get in high performance sports. It's so competitive, and the margins of error are so thin, are so small. And I felt like I was able to get everything that I needed in terms of companionship, fellowship, um, encouragement, compassion, like patience, all the things that I knew that are important for just male mental health, and without all the again all the numbers and all the records and all the numbers you had to hit in terms of just high performance sports. So I was really really grateful for all of these things that you could find in one, and it was right down my backyard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
was
always
just
liken it. Sorry, Paul, I just want to jump in real quick on that because that's important to me is, when people ask me what F3 is, yeah, it's a workout group, yeah, it's a fellowship and faith group. But for those that play, and I played high school football. We won 5 games in 4 years, and I didn't play. So I'm by no means comparing my skill level to yours, but just that being in the locker room, being with the guys, being on the team bus, doing hard shit with other guys that are there because they want to be. The two other fields I liken it to are A, the locker room, or B, if you've, and I haven't personally served, but I've talked to Hanger and Squidward who have served, and they both admitted that, the same concept of going through hard shit together with men. Um,
Absolutely.
Especially vol. I mean, obviously a little different with sports versus serving, but just that concept of that brotherhood forged in the trenches. To me, that's what F3 is. So just wanted to echo what you're saying. Puddles, I know you played some baseball too. I'm sure you can find relation there, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think there's different stages of growth throughout your life, particularly as men who are competitive, who play sports, or maybe if you're into music, you're in a band. But
Mm-hmm.
there's always some group that you attach your identity to.
Mm-hmm.
And for athletes, musicians, artists, there's an ability you attach your identity to as well. And I think for athletes, once you get older and you get to a point where you can no longer do that thing, or no one's any longer interested in having you do that thing, like come play baseball for me, come play football for me. There's a sense of loss and like, well, who am I without this thing that I used to do? Who am I without that group of guys in the in the locker room on the bus that I'll probably never see again? So this is definitely built for men who have that team sport mentality, who have that all for one, one for all kind of mentality. And I think it's hard to it's hard to communicate that in advance of coming to F3 because even in the first couple of months, Pancake, you've already seen this. Each time you show up to a workout, it's a different group of guys. I think Sparkler said this a long time ago. Like, look at your flag pick. Like that may be the only time that group of men are in that spot together. Because next time there's gonna be one other guy there. The time after that, two other guys won't be there. And having gone through, the region expansion from Plainfield, where Doghouse and I started, to Shamanwood, we don't see a lot of those guys in Plainfield anymore. Personally, I know when I was running on Saturday, I ran through the wood and I caught Meta out of the corner of my eye. He was saying something by my earbuds, and I couldn't really hear him until I was past him. But I haven't seen him in months, and he's one of my favorite Plainfield packs. Like just love that guy to death. And I felt bad, like, man, that's the first opportunity I've had to see him in months. I'm just running right by, like trying to finish my run. So I connected with him afterwards. But I think back to all those guys that made F3 what it was in the beginning and how many of them I just don't see anymore. Like Caboose, another great example. Hank Hill I run into from time to time, but all those guys who really made that experience, we just don't see as much anymore. And that's part of the growth of F3. It's really hard to communicate that in the beginning. Like these are guys who will become your new team, your new teammates, your new brothers, your new family in a sense.
Well,
Uh,
I think, yeah, I think that's a really good comparison. Even just that snapshot of running into a fellow PAX that you haven't seen in months. The high performance world necessarily isn't like that. I mean, I think that's where, identity, there's a whole psychology around why some of us end up the way we do, with mental health illnesses. And this is a world that doesn't get talked about. This is one of the reasons that drove me into the field of psychology is because, I mean, I knew so many guys who were all Big Ten, all Americans, and yet, behind closed doors, there was so much going on that no one knew about. Maybe some of us who knew these guys pretty well, and so that identity where you have to be this person is really hard even coming out of a small town. I mean, at one point, my jersey was up on in the Buffalo Wild Wings in Morris on the wall, and it just I was part of one of the largest classes to go to Division 1. We had 6 guys in 1 year go D1, and so when you come back, you didn't make it, quote unquote. It's such a hard transition when you don't have that brotherhood. that's built on these things that F3 I think is built on. And so there's so many who out there who I've played with who no longer even want to be around sports
Mhm.
because just because of that identity. Once they're lost, it feels like you can't get it back. You can't get that same kind of value in life, and it's heartbreaking to see. I mean, I know guys that I played with who are like this, who played in the NFL, and now they're selling cars. And I'm nothing wrong with selling cars and not diminishing that job, but it's hard to see that they feel like their life was the culmination of the sport, and yet there's so much more to men and what they offer the communities. And so to your point, I love that snapshot of running into fellow packs and be able just to connect in a way that I think I wouldn't have the same experience if I ran to like a old player. There's just so much shame, so much embarrassment because a lot of us don't make it, and that's the reality. Even though we all wanted to make it to the big, to the big show.
Yeah, we do. I think I told you this when we had our conversions at Three Rivers a couple months ago. Is that for a lot of us, these convergences are like family reunions. Like I remember walking around Plainfield at the 5 year, and so many guys I hadn't seen in probably a year, but picked up conversations like it had been a day, just because you have that shared experience of having been through something and still being a part of it, still
Yeah.
wanting to see each other succeed and uh, remembering where each other came from. It's just such an uplifting experience. But again, it's hard to. I bring that up because it's hard to paint that picture in advance. I was just EHing a couple guys over the weekend. One I ran into at lunch with my family, um, and another guy from here in my neighborhood. We're just trying to explain to them it's more than a workout group. It's more than the Merkins. It's more than the miles. It's more than all the sweat equity. There's something to it that is missing in all of our lives, and you can feel it when somebody has that void. And those two guys I was just talking to have that void. Like their eyes lit up when I explained what it was. And that reminds me of when Pancake and I met at the bakery. Like I was just looking at my phone trying to find the conversation. Doghouse, you probably remember this. I sent out a text to the SLT and I'm like, hey, I met this guy at the bakery, trying to get him to come out to Morris. Uh, I think he's going to be really good for our region. Like I can see, like he bought into it before I even had to EH him. So you just see that certain men are going to be interested in it and are going to want this, and that's what our region just needs more of is more men who you don't have to convince them this is a good thing. Like this is what they've been looking for. They just didn't know it had a name, didn't know it had a letter and a number. So when we talk about what it's meant to you so far, I also wanted to ask what motivates you to be as engaged as you have been these first 2 months. Like typically, Doghouse, you can speak to your own experience or what you've seen in the region, but usually a guy will come out his first time, maybe come out once a week, maybe twice a week, but pretty rarely do we see a guy jump in as head first as you have. You've been queuing probably 10 times in your first 40 posts, which is pretty much unheard of. But what motivates you to get that deeply involved and stay that deeply involved this early, still being so new to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's several different kind of independent factors. I mean, the two come to mind is just my background and the need, like my own mental health and the importance of maintaining my mental health for my family. So I know I've heard it from a few men in the groups, like the why. We talked a lot about that when I was playing. Why do you do anything? Find your why. That's something I've deeply held into my life. That's motivated me to train. As hard as so. I think people have gotten a pretty good snapshot of what my life used to be when I was a Division I athlete, and the success. And I don't need anyone to motivate me to do that. I don't need. I do it because I know, one, most importantly, again, that my mental health is the most important, the priority, because my kids need me every day. They need me to be emotionally present. They need me to be there physically present. I need to be healthy to do the work I do because it is so emotionally taxing working with just some of the hardest things that people have to hear and work with trauma and personality disorders. And I work with court appointed families, court orders, custody issues. And so I can't do that if I'm not healthy. And so that was one of the biggest drivers. And I know that I need male companionship. I know I need men who are willing to put their mental health and their physical health um, at the forefront, which is very unique in terms of just mental health in general for men. I didn't, that's a big void that I've seen just based on my clinical experience and knowing that I needed to find a group that was going to provide that support for me. So that was the first one. I mean, the why is the first, and the second is just that I know that the male companionship, the support is what's also going to make me healthy. It's not just, physical performance, individual performance, but it's just knowing that people know you and they want to hear you, they want to see you, they want to know who you are, they want to know your story. And I can't stress to men enough that that's something that's not been trained, it's not taught to us, in this society. And that's a whole other topic in itself, and that could require a few hours for me to kind of explain and present. But ultimately, these were the two main. And then I would say the third one is just knowing the need in Morris and West. And I know I have the skills, the leadership skills, the background to know what it's going to take to have a group of men who desire to uplift other men, to encourage them, to make them feel like they're part of something, give them purpose again and meaning. And growing up in this area, I mean, there was that shooting just recently too, in Morris that happened on Saturday at the VQ. I mean, I know the officer that was there. I know my father-in-law is the Morris Police Department chaplain. He has been there. He's been a chaplain for over 25 years. And so we know how big of a need it is. And if you keep going further west, it's just even a bigger need. Men are isolated. They feel alienated from their families, from their communities. And so this group couldn't have been, again, a bigger answer, not only for myself, emotionally, mentally, physically, but I know. And so the way I fit into this is I'm very well versed into how to be a follower, how to I'm very, as you know, Puddles, is I reach out. I'm very good about, because I know what it takes to be successful as a man. I need people around me. I need healthy men around me. And so I'm very intentional about the relationships that I build. And so I'm not bashful about reaching out, calling, asking for help, getting guys to come out and just partake in conversations. And so I think I fit that role where I can be a follower, and if I have to contribute as a leader, I will. But the best mentors of mine have always taught me that you don't need to be a leader unless you're asked to be a leader. People will recognize that in you, and they'll know it when they see it. And if you have it, they'll call you up. And if you don't have it yet, you won't be called up. And it's not a bad thing. It just means that you're just not there yet. And I've learned that throughout my just training experiences. Some of those men have transformed my lives. And so I'm very willing to fit whatever role F3 needs me to be, because I know that everybody has the same vision. I love the mission statement, the culture. And so I'm very comfortable in both leadership and following position, because we need both. And they're
Well, it
both
leads
equally.
me to my next question, actually. What do you see as what's next for you in F3? If you look ahead 6 months, a year from now.
Um, yeah, I mean, I do believe that I possess, a lot of the characteristics that give me the opportunities, if the position's there, to lead men. I don't lead men by being a dictator. I lead men by inspiring them, encouraging them. I want to be replaceable, is what I tell people.
Mm.
If I can't be replaceable, then I'm not actually helping men become men. And again, that just comes from mentorship. Just I've had great mentors in the sports world to know that that is a really unique position to be a leader, to be asked to be identified as someone to step up. That's a huge honor that I don't take lightly. And so, whenever I'm asked to speak or whenever I'm asked to step up into those roles, it's a huge responsibility because it's not mine to take a hold of. It's an opportunity to speak. And I know that through my experience and my speaking experiences, uh, I know that I have a lot of things that I could offer, but I'm always looking to learn more than I am speaking, because I know that I'm a learner. That's what made me successful as an athlete. I'm always looking for opportunities to learn. I learn a lot by watching. I'm very observant. It doesn't help. I mean, it kind of helps that I'm a clinical therapist, so I watch behavior and study behavior all day long. But I watch people. I see wisdom. When I see wisdom, I attach myself to those men. And Picasso again. I reference him a lot, but he just the way he speaks, the way he's able, like the guy runs like the wind, and yet I've seen him many times. He'll come back and he'll run with guys. Doesn't matter who you are. He wants to make you feel like you're part of the team, and that's wisdom. That's leadership. And I think there's a lot of that aligns with my spiritual convictions as well. And so he and like some other men, I think of what's his name now? Not Grubex, like Rooney, I think his name.
Hmm.
So I think Rooney was there. Was that today? Doghouse, right?
This morning he was on cue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's an interesting. Yeah, so he's. I see a lot. I see a lot of very healthy leadership in him, and just the way he's able to encourage men in the way he's very observant. He's very encouraging, but he doesn't have to boast about it. But he does it in a way where people feel heard and seen, and I think those things are unique. And I'm very quick to gravitate towards men like that. I have no problem asking men for insight and what do they think about, like how to do this or this exercise or whatever. And so, but learning is something that I'm always aspiring to be, and being the best version of myself, and modeling that behavior, and watching people model those values, I think is really important. So that's where I see myself, 6 months to a year is, I'm ready to step in those roles when I'm asked. I'm happy to set the pace when I need to, but I also know it's just as important as to get those, what are they called, cotters? Is that what the name is?
Hmm.
But those men are just as important, because some of those men just need a little bit of a boost and they'll take off. I've seen it happen in sports, and they just need to feel like they're part of something. So there's no one's better than anybody, and that's why I think I appreciate about everybody that I've met in F3 is, we're all in it together to encourage one another in different ways. So
Well, it's been a pleasure watching you grow in these first couple months into F3. Like I said, I was excited when we first met. I could sense there was something there that was going to be good for all of us in the region. So thank you for sharing all that and helping the men in in the audience get to know you a little bit better. As we wrap up, I know we've got some third F stuff to go through. Doghouse, there's quite a bit of things going on here in the spring as we
Yeah.
come out of the winter thaw. So why don't you run us through what we've got going on in the third F?
Yeah, thanks. A lot of running opportunities starting with this Saturday, March 7th, the Manhattan Irish Fest 5K. We will be there. Sign up. That counts towards your Winter Warrior points. There will be a second F event after as well. That'll count towards your second F. Following weekend, March 14th, will be the Shorewood Shamrock Shuffle. And also on March 14th will be the Polar Plunge down in Braidwood, which is always a very well attended and fun event for the F3 guys. Also, April 11th, we're going to have the Forgotten Warrior 5K. Guys, right now we only have, I think Homer told me 3 guys signed up between both regions.
Hmm.
So let's get out and support them. That's in our own backyard. That's for a great cause. It's for Forgotten Warriors. Warriors, those who have paid the ultimate price for our freedom. So let's make sure we get out and support that in our backyard. And finally, another very big event in the region, I know very near and dear to Puddle's hearts, is Hugs and 5Ks, the Short Hugs 5K. So details are coming on that. As soon as we get the sign up, we'll get that put it out there. But that is going to be our tentpole event as a region. So 2 very big events for us, back-to-back weekends, and we want to pack the house on both of those, as those are in our backyard.
Yeah, thanks, Doghouse. I know as the weather gets better, There seems like every weekend there's something could be doing F3 related. So keep your eyes out in info only and make sure you're paying attention to your own calendar so you can participate, bring the family out where it's appropriate, and uh, get plugged in. I'll close us with a really, really quick COT today. One thing that Pancake and I have in common is our shared interest in philosophy. So this is something I pulled from the philosophy channel this last week. It's quote, the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping from old ones. I think all of us who come into F3 are rediscovering ourselves. We're finding that the old narratives that we told ourselves for several years just don't apply anymore. That perhaps we're not the person that we used to be in good ways, that we're capable of breaking out of those old ideas that have been holding us back. We don't have to make excuses to stay on the couch anymore. There's a free workout group where we have no excuse to not be out there every morning, every night, wherever we want to be. There's going to be a group out there of men meeting us where we are. So work in these next couple of weeks as you get ready for the spring, and not so much in trying to figure out what to do that's new, but perhaps escaping some of these old limitations that you've been using like a crutch to hold yourself back. So I'll leave you with that, and we'll close out with Mamorama, as we always do. I am Bill Skoronsky, 47, and Puddles.
Puddles. John Christ, 41, Doghouse.
Doghouse.
Bon Diaz 39, Pancake.
Pancake.
Pancake. All right, man. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And as always, make sure you get on the cue sheet so we can help tell your story throughout the region as well. Until then, we'll see you all in the gloom.
Bye.